So we met Daisy through Katie, and I can never pronounce Katie's last name. And Katie
Bunchton.
Okay, with Katie. And Daisy and Katie provide accounting services for us here at the networking studio. We found ourselves in the need to level up last year as editors and with the work that we were doing, and we brought them on board, and we've been collaborating for the last 6 months together on different projects and things. And their energy, their optimism of making taxes and accounting fun for us and something that we would enjoy doing has been really appreciated, and has shed some really positive light that they're a firm that can help us grow, and at the same time they can see us through that growth and kind of be there on the sidelines cheering us on and showing us things that we could be doing better and new opportunities that might come our way that we can take advantage of as well. So
and Linda, I just wanted to add, the way we met them was through the IBPA, the Independent Book Publishers Association. So they already have a bit of a connection with publishing and writing, and there's that affinity as well.
And this will be my last thing, that every time we attend these different meetings of taxes and accounting things at different organizations, I'm always left with that still doesn't sound that interesting or that exciting, or like, I don't want to deal with this. And so when we met you guys, it was a whole other experience. It was like, oh, relax, like, here, we can just give them what we have and they'll take care of it and help us. So it's been really positive. But Daisy, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you for that very warm welcome. We love working with you guys. Background, I've been doing accounting. I started off with accounting, been doing accounting about 13 years. And then taxes about 6 years. I know taxes and accounting sound very scary and very, like, nobody wants to do them, but we make them fun around here. Okay. It's something that definitely has to be done. But we're going to learn a little, hopefully you all learn a little more today on what needs to be done and why it has to be done. Okay.
And then Daisy, I will let you share your screen.
Okay.
Let me see here. Okay. Let's see if that works. And if you have questions for Daisy or about what we're talking about, feel free to post them in the chat. We really want to emphasize that this is a safe space to ask anything that you feel that you've always been afraid to ask about accounting or taxes, even if it sounds like the most irrelevant question, but ask it, please, because the idea here is that we can get all of our questions answered and really understand what it is that we're trying to do with our accounting, with our taxes. So did that work, Daisy?
Yeah, I just can't find it. Oh, found it. Okay. Okay. Everybody can see it? Yes. Okay. So we're going to be talking about taxes for small businesses. I feel like everybody knows taxes to a certain level, right? We all, adults, we know we have to file taxes, but what happens when we go into a business? What do we have to do and what do we have to file? Of course, I work for Certum Solutions. This is what we offer at Certum. Okay, we offer software, bookkeeping services, marketing, e-commerce, and we have recently launched into taxes. Okay, so who should pay taxes? Everybody. Okay, I always get asked that question, and I have people ask me, well, do I need to file taxes? I didn't work for a company and I didn't receive a W-2. Did you work? Yes. Okay, then you need to file taxes. Okay, so everybody should be filing taxes. These taxes, especially for businesses, are filed either quarterly, yearly, depending on what type of entity you have. So how do we prepare for these taxes? And I feel like this is one of the biggest questions that I have from small businesses, right? Well, what am I supposed to be doing? How do I get these taxes prepared? Or what am I supposed to get together in order to file taxes? So I think the first thing is be organized. And when I say organized is, I think one of the biggest things that I see with small businesses is commingling personal and business. Okay. So once you set in your mind, I'm going to start a business, this is my business, you need to make sure to be very organized. You're going to have a bank account for your personal, and then you're going to have a bank account for your business. Okay. So that right there is already being organized, because even if you don't do any of the other things that I'm going to mention, we can pull income and expenses from your business account. Okay. If you're putting everything into your personal account, and you're telling me, well, this, and this is business. How do we know this really was business, right? And the IRS doesn't like that. That's one of the things. The IRS doesn't like us putting funds into personal accounts. If you have a business, have a business account. If you have, personal, keep that on the personal side. So be organized, keep all expenses and income in one place. And when you're starting off your business, something as simple as even like a notebook, making sure you're writing everything down, a folder, right? Just throw everything in there. I have clients that will bring me boxes, okay, at the end of the year, because they don't want to be responsible for anything. They pretty much just, everything that's coming in and out, they just throw it in a box. And then at the end of the year, they're like, here you go. And I'm like, thank you, right? Even at that point, I'm very grateful, because it is a little more work for us, but everything is in there. We don't have to go track you down. I mean, of course, there's going to be questions asked, but we don't have to go after you, asking you like, was this personal? Because it looks like a personal expense, right? Or is it really business? So just trying to be very organized, separating everything, a folder, a spreadsheet. Okay, now in technology era, right? A spreadsheet, just open up an Excel and even if you enter everything into one Excel, if you want to be even more organized, do a tab for expenses and do a tab for income. Okay, so just making sure we have everything in one place and keeping everything for the year organized. Software, there's a lot of software out there, right? QuickBooks, I feel like, is the one that we hear the most about. So there's QuickBooks Online. Of course, there's a fee for that, and that's up to you as your business is growing. There's something else called Xero. And then plain old school, a notebook or a spreadsheet. Okay. A lot of our clients, a lot of our small businesses that we bring in, we start them off with a spreadsheet. Okay. We send them a spreadsheet and you track everything there the whole year. I know that's how Linda and Brittany started off. But we start them off with a spreadsheet and that works. That's fine. Okay. What else? Keeping track of all money coming in and out. Like I said, everything that's coming in for your business and going out for your business, please keep track of it. Anything as like, oh, you can't see it, a calculator, right? I purchased a calculator. That's an expense. I'm an accountant. That's an expense for me, right? You guys are editors, books, pencils, software, and I'll go into that in another slide, but just keeping track of all expenses. Okay, so what is income? Income is any type of money that you're receiving for the product or service that you're providing. You guys are, writing books, or maybe you're providing a service. I know that we provide classes, right? That we offer classes, so that, that's a product, service. So just any type of money that's coming in for whatever it is that we're doing, right? Cash, ACH payments, royalties. I know you work with with royalties a lot. Payments, tips, gift cards. I know gift cards is not actual money, but the IRS considers it income. Okay.
Yeah. And can I jump in there for a second, Daisy?
Yes.
So a lot of us editors, when we start off as freelance editors, it's very basic. It's like, I generate an invoice, the client pays me, and then I buy things for my business using my business credit card or my ATM card for my business. And it's very simple. But then all of a sudden, I get invited to give a presentation. So now there's, a new invoice for that presentation, but the presentation sometimes is an honorarium, but that's still income. And so all of a sudden my income just becomes a little bit bigger or a little bit more different than just creating invoices and getting paid. And so all these little side things that come up from a collaboration or from being a subcontractor on a project, so all of that different kind of income, we definitely log it on a spreadsheet, and it really helps to keep track at the end of the year of where everything's going and how much we're actually making and where our expenses are. So I feel like the concept of keeping track of our accounting is usually way more overwhelming than it actually is to do it. So it is doable. And then we'll go a little bit, maybe at the end, we'll talk about other easy ways, to keep track of these things. But sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, you're fine. You're fine. But yes, any type of money coming in, and you'd be surprised. Okay. I know when a business starts, for the most part, right, it's kind of slow. You're starting to get your business going. It's going, maybe very little income coming in. And I have clients that will come and, the first thing I ask them, well, how much did you make? Oh, I didn't make that much. I maybe made like, I don't know, $5,000. Okay. Once we start going and entering all this, money coming in from all types of sources, they thought they made $5,000. In reality, they made like $20,000, right? Which is a huge difference. So yes, making sure we're, writing everything down or just keeping track of everything, because to us, it may not seem like a lot, right? Because we're thinking, okay, $5,000, but you're thinking maybe what was actually left in your pocket after all expenses. But in reality, you made 20, you just really only saw maybe 5. Okay. So just making sure that we're keeping track of all that money. What is not considered income? Okay. So reimbursements, gifts. Okay. So people can give you a gift and that's perfectly fine. That's not considered income. What else is not considered income? Any type of, I'm trying to think.
Are like the Patreons are like people that have Patreon. Like I know that editors have Patreon accounts where people can do like support or donations, or that seem like really minimal, but that would be income as well, right?
Okay, so donations, that's something different. Yeah, that wouldn't be considered income. Yeah.
Okay, if it's a donation. Okay.
Yes, it's a donation and it's put in a different form.
Okay.
What else? Expenses. Okay. So continuing ed, I know you guys probably do a lot of continuing education, a lot of, trying to better yourselves, trying to learn new things. There's a lot of, stuff out there that we need to learn. So just any type of like conferences that you go to, those can be reported as expenses. They're continuing education. And these can be done virtual. I know, post-COVID, we have a lot of like the virtual, a lot of people really don't meet in person. So any virtual or online webinars, courses, any certifications, maybe why don't you pay so much money for this certification? So all of that equipment, to me, an editor, the first thing that comes to mind is like pen and paper, right? But there's so much more. I've learned a lot from the editors, from Linda and Brittany. So just computers, maybe you have like 2 or 3 screens that you use, webcams. Okay. A lot of computers don't come, so we have to buy like a separate webcam, microphones, the chairs, the desk, anything that you use as part of like your everyday to run that business, software, space heaters. So this was a big one and a new one to me. Okay. And I know Linda brought it up. I guess like you guys use a lot of space heaters. Think IRS says the IRS has a rule, common and necessary. Okay. So it's always you have to always think common and necessary. Is it something that it's common, right? A space heater. Okay. Maybe, it is common in this world or for editors, because you guys are sitting in a desk, maybe in a closed room, and it gets really cold in there. So that's very, very common. Necessary. Isn't necessary. Well, maybe without the space heater, you really can't work. So just when it comes to expenses, we have to think common and necessary.
Like that.
Square, right? To take payments. So that would be an expense. Utilities. If you guys are working from home, okay, we can deduct pretty much the square footage of your office, or it doesn't even have to be a whole room. It can be like a 10 by 10 space. 6x10 space. Okay, so if you have a dedicated space for your home that you are using for your business, we can deduct that. Okay, and then on top of that, we can deduct utilities, right? Based on the square footage of our business, what we're calling our business, right? Like I said, the square footage, there's people that have a dedicated room. It's a whole room, and we'll just do, I don't know, 10 feet by 10 feet, but there's people that have a little space within a room. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Miscellaneous stuff like insurance, retirement contributions, okay, college expenses. So I feel like with self-employment, one of the biggest things that I see when we're self-employed, when we work for an employer, right? We get a W-2, we get our W-2 at the end of the year. We have, what we made, taxes that were deducted. Maybe we were enrolled in an insurance plan. Maybe we were enrolled in a retirement plan. Okay. I don't see a lot of employers be enrolled in any type of retirement plan. Okay. So that's one of the biggest things that I see not happening. And I feel like we're all going to, be retired at some point. So that's something that I want to highlight, just maybe start thinking about it. There's many retirement plans out there. Some from very inexpensive to, of course, more expensive. But
yeah, Daisy, I think we're planning on having a talk maybe more towards after the summer when we're all kind of coming back into, well, not all, but a lot of us work in the summer. But after the summer, we're going to be talking a little bit about maybe retirement plans and things that we could be doing as freelance editors to start setting some money aside, if that's possible, even if it's just a little bit, and what kind of plans we need to look at. So for sure, that's something we're planning on addressing. If we see that there's interest, of course, from everyone.
Okay. So. Yeah. I feel, I think that's one of the biggest things that I see people not doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it can help on your taxes as well.
Yes.
If you are able to be doing, okay. All right.
Yes. So everything that I'm mentioning, there's some type of tax deduction. Of course, expenses will lower your tax liability. Retirement plans, those are tax deductions you can take. Okay. Going back to school, that would be part of like going back to school, but to better, not as far as like continuing ed. It's just, it would be like going back to school and taking that deduction for going back to like a university. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Entities. Okay, so we have sole proprietorships, which I see the most. Sole proprietorships and LLCs are the ones that I see the most. Okay, partnerships I have seen a lot lately, and then we have S corps, and then we have corporations. I'm not going to get a lot into this. If you have questions, you can always reach out to me. But these are the different types of entities that you have. Most start at that sole proprietorship LLC level, and then they go up to partners. Sole proprietorship LLC and partnership would be where you start off. Okay, so most people kind of jump into a partnership or they jump in by themselves. After that, they'll either go into an S corp or into a C corp. Okay. Okay, so who are we contacting? When it comes to accounting, when it comes to taxes, who should we contact, right? Most small businesses start off with maybe just one person, and we start off doing just the bare minimum, right? If anything, a spreadsheet, if anything, just putting everything in a folder, which is fine. As our business starts growing, that's when we need to start thinking, okay, what is the next level? Who do I need to hire? Who do I need to talk to, right? I know Linda mentioned you guys have grown, over the last year. So it was time to just kind of just take that next level. And it doesn't have to be from like me doing everything on my own to, I'm going to go and hire an attorney and an accountant that I'm paying $1 million, retainer. No, it's something just kind of talking to someone, maybe an accountant, right? I still remember our initial conversation with Linda and Brittany. It was very like we were friends, we're just talking and they're telling us about their business and we tell them about, what we offer and what we can do for them. And every time that they have a question, we try to answer that question or try to guide them to where they need to go. So just have someone that's going to be in your corner, someone that's going to be able to answer questions. If you have those questions that you're like, you know what, I really can't figure this out. Okay, so advisors, having a business coach, you know, maybe if you're not very familiar with like business at all, like you're just like, I don't know I don't know anything about business. Someone just guide me. Okay. Financial advisors, like I said, someone that can guide you into retirement, investing. Okay. A lot of that's, I feel like we hear it a lot, but then nobody really talks about it a lot. You know, people
Yeah.
talk about it on social media, people talk about it on, you know, on the web, but who really tells you, okay, how do I start a retirement plan? How do I invest? How do I start investing if I wanted to, right? So just having some type of advisor, an accountant, I mean, we can start off very low to where, you know, we're just having like these one-on-ones. You can hire a bookkeeper, right? Bookkeeper, I know that Linda had asked me, what's the difference between like a bookkeeper and an accountant? Okay. So bookkeepers focus on the day-to-day. Okay, bookkeepers will focus on putting everything in, making sure that your books are balanced. Accountants focus more on the bigger picture. We focus more on the financial aspect of your company. Okay, we pull financial reports. We discuss those financial reports with you. Okay, sorry. If we see that there's been a big change between like month to month, you know, and within change, I always like to look at the positive change, but as well as a negative, right? Maybe we had a big rise in income and we're like, great, we're doing great. But then maybe from 1 month to the other, we had, you know, this big jump on expenses. Okay, what happened? This is something that, okay, let's discuss what happened. Are these really expenses, or are we just doing something wrong, something that we don't know? So just having someone that has that good background.
I want to like
Lawyers,
ask that. Yeah, Daisy, can I add to that? Because I think
yes.
so again, like you were saying, this gets talked a lot in like on other webinars and chats, but it in the practical day-to-day, it's sometimes hard to relate to that or to understand how does that apply to me. So for us, what ended up happening, and with me with my own business is so I have a sole proprietorship as the Insightful editor, and we have the networking studio, which is a oh my God, it's an LLC. With Brittany. Yeah, with an LLC with Brittany, based out of Georgia. And so when I started doing, I always felt for a very long time, probably my first 2 or 3 years, that I was just too small to be doing profit and loss statements. Like, who cares? You know, I'm not really making that much money, because I was kind of new to freelancing. But then when I started doing that, what ends up happening, and I don't know if all of you do, you might all be doing this already, and you might not. That's the only reason why I'm sharing it, is that you start to see what happened in the year, and you start to see what quarter went really well and what quarter was maybe mediocre, and why was that quarter mediocre and why was one really well. And so the one that went really well was probably, you know, 6 months before books get launched. That's when I got hired by the publishers. That was like beginning of the year when most of the big projects came in, but towards the fall there weren't that many. And so how do I compensate for that loss of income that I'm not going to make in the fall? That means that kind of told me, well, I need to start booking in May projects for the fall. Or that means I need to start giving presentations in the fall to make up for income that I'm not going to have because I'm not going to be copy editing or developmental editing that much. So you start to see the bigger picture of your income flow. And most of us are always trying to make more money every year. And until we understand very clearly when we're making that money and where that money is coming from, can we understand maybe what kind of projects we need to have more of, and when, because a lot of times when you have a really busy first quarter, you're so drained by the end of it, you can't go into another crazy quarter as well. And so you have to see, how do I balance that work out? And when, you know, if I can forecast now that in 6 months, I'm not going to have as much work, and so then I need to start adding other things to supplement that income, I can plan better. I can see where I need to pitch for presentations, where I need to pitch to give a course or a class, or so I think that's the main reason to bring it down to our level, is to understand how this accounting is affecting us and how I can prepare myself better for the income that I want to make next year. So that's kind of like how I work with it.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. You know, knowing, like you said, you used to say, I'm not big enough for a profit and loss, right? All a profit and loss is income and expenses. that's all it is. That's a profit and loss. But like you said, planning ahead, if once you start seeing data from like a year, 2 years, 3 years prior, you're like, okay, this is what I need to do this year to prepare myself for this coming year, right? For accountants, tax accountants, busy season is January through April, right? But then we know that the summer is very slow, okay? So just keeping that in mind, knowing and planning ahead of, like you said, maybe I'm not going to write a book. Maybe I just need to do something to keep me, bring some income while, the next thing happens. So yes. Lawyers. Okay. Like I said, you don't need to go hire an attorney that you need to, put $1 million on retainer for them to start working for you. There are very qualified attorneys out there that are not very expensive, right? But I feel like sometimes when we're small businesses, we think, I can't do it. We think the word, and this is how I am, or I was, right? I used to hear a lawyer, I can't do that. They're so expensive. Like, I cannot do that. They're going to charge me an arm and a leg, and I'm just not going to put myself in that situation. And right away, we kind of, instead of taking that step forward, we take like 5 steps backwards, because we're putting that block for us, right? But I know a lot of attorneys that are very affordable, and you don't need to have someone, maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know, depending on your business, but also an attorney that knows contracts, right? You guys deal with contracts, that's pretty much your work. So someone that's going to be able to read that, I'm sure you've all read a contract at some point. The way they word things, you're like, okay, I'm signing for this. And in reality, no, you're signing for this, right? So just making sure you have someone in your corner that's going to be able to explain that to you and tell you, yes, this is beneficial for you, or no, this is not beneficial for you, okay? And then of course, a tax accountant, someone that knows how to do your taxes, that's going to be able to get you the deductions, be able to, enter all those expenses, or tell you, yes, this is an expense, or tell you, no, this is not an expense. Okay. One of the biggest things that I see is, and I'll probably have to share it with Linda. There's this clip, and I should have shared it before we started, and I didn't think about it till now, but, what's that show called? Schitt's Creek?
Yes.
I can't remember. Yes. Okay. Well, there's this clip, and I will send it to Linda so she can post it.
I'll share it. Yeah, with our group. Yeah.
He's the son, right? He went and he purchased, a lamp and a comforter. He just purchased all this stuff. I think like a massage chair. So the dad comes in and he's like, "What is this?" He's like, "It's a business expense. I can write it off." He's like, "Well, what is this?" "It's a business expense. I can write it off." He's like, "And who writes it off?" He's like, "I don't know, the write-off people." Okay. So in our world, it's very funny because we have a lot of clients that will come to us and they tell us, we have this list of stuff. They're like, "It's a write-off. It's an expense. You can write it off." And I'm like, "No, I can't. It's not ordinary or necessary for your business. You cannot write it off." Okay. So having someone that's going to know what you can expense and what you cannot. Okay. If you are an editor and you're coming to me and telling me that you want to write off, I don't know, a king size bed that you just bought because you're trying to tell me that that's where you write, to me, it's not going to make sense, and it's not going to make sense to the IRS. So just ordinary and necessary. Keep that in mind. Okay. Yeah. And then tax planning. Okay. Someone that's going to help you do any type of planning that you have. Maybe like Linda said, we all want to grow. We start off a business with the idea that it's going to grow. The first year and then the second year, every year we want to grow. Even if it's a small number, we want to make sure that the business is growing. So have a tax accountant that's going to be able to sit with you and tell you, okay, this is what we need to do in order for your business to grow. So these are I feel the main people that you should have in your corner. Like I said, it doesn't have to be somebody that's very expensive. Look for knowledge. Okay. That's the biggest thing. Someone that you can have a conversation with and you feel comfortable talking to them, and you feel comfortable that they're telling you the correct information, and that they're doing the research for your type of business. And that's it. This is our information. Linda, I will say, I think you have the latest one, the slides, but if you, this is my information, my email. If you click on this one, you can actually book like a one-on-one with me. This is Certum's page if you want to go through it and look for it. And then we're also on YouTube and Facebook.
Great. Thank you, Daisy. And I will, yeah, I did get the slides. Thank you. And I will share them with everybody who registered for the meeting so they can have that. And we do have a couple of questions. And what I want to add to was then when Brittany and I spoke, we spoke several times before we decided to bring you guys on board with us to help us with our business. But one of the things that I really appreciated from you and Katie and because you guys have a great team, actually, that it's not just Daisy and Katie, there's a team at Certum that does a bunch of different
We
things.
are a team, yes.
Yes, it's a really nice team. Was that there's a lot of brainstorming that happens. And so one of the things that we had discussed with Katie was there's some things that Brittany and I wanted to do with our business and we didn't have the funding for. So Katie was informing us, have you considered this grant? And there's that grant. And so I know that my hope is that whenever Katie comes across a grant or something that she thinks would apply to our business, she's going to send us an email to let us know that we should be applying for that. So it's about who do you have in your corner? And for me personally, all the tax preparers that I've had in my corner over the years were in my corner and then disappeared very quickly after tax season. And so I'm excited to have someone in my corner who's not only going to be around for tax season, but can also share resources and knowledge with us that we might not have time to research, that we might not have access to, that we might not know about. And that's, I feel, where you guys really bring the value in, is to be able to not only look at the one thing at our tax reporting, but look at our growth throughout the year and what we could be doing better and where there's the missed opportunities that we're not seeing. So yes, that's what I'm kind of excited about as well. We had some questions. Yeah, Brittany, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we have a number of questions. I think the first one is from Dana. The question is, at what point can I pay myself from my business? And like, if I'm thinking, Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, but were you thinking in terms of like, if I'm a sole proprietor, like how do I handle that? Because it does feel, when you're a sole proprietor, things feel a bit more enmeshed and it can be hard to know exactly like how do I navigate this?
Okay, is that, are we a sole? Oh, are we a sole? Who was it that asked?
Dana? I'm not sure if Dana is.
I think Dana's a sole proprietorship.
Okay. I mean, with the sole proprietorship, you don't have to pay yourself. Okay. It's more of a sole. Should you choose to pay so, that's perfectly fine. Okay. We can deduct that as employee pay. What else did the question say?
Yeah, it was basically, at what point can I pay myself from my business, or like, how do you navigate that? Do you need to give yourself, I'm assuming do you need to give yourself, pay on a monthly basis, or are you just like moving the funds from the business to your personal account because they're kind of enmeshed anyhow?
So when you think, so here's the thing with self-pay, okay? You have to look at it from a business perspective. Okay, you're going to pay yourself, and again, ordinary and necessary. You cannot pay yourself $1 million a week if that's not what the normal is. Okay, I feel like a lot of people, and I've had this conversation with a lot of clients, right? Their job description, whatever their job description is, you have to pay yourself what is normal for that job description. You cannot be I understand, okay, maybe you're CEO and you're paying yourself, I don't know, $3,000 a week. Okay, if that's within normal for that job description, that's fine. And then it can be weekly, bi-weekly. You decide on the pay frequency.
And that's labeled as, like in my accounting stuff, I need to label that as employee pay, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because you are now an employee.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. We had a question from Luisa about quarterly or yearly taxes. So you mentioned it depends on the business entity. Does it also depend on which state you live in, and kind of how do you navigate that?
Yes. So a lot of these IRS rules are going to be based on the state that you live. Okay. And that's where we could probably hop like on a call one-on-one, and we can research your state and see what the state says as far as, you know, the rules for that. But yes, a lot of these things are going to come down to the state level.
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to share that I did not know about quarterly tax payments until my third year, I think, of freelancing. I was completely oblivious until someone in our mastermind group was like, "Oh, quarterly tax." I'm like, "What is that?" I need to pay that. So,
And no, and you know
yeah.
what? You're not the first person that I hear this from. A lot of people will come. I had a client last year, and they owed. It was about $7,000 that they owed. And they're like, well, I didn't know. Oh, that's another thing. Okay. The IRS, if you get a letter and then you tell the IRS, I didn't know, right? I didn't know. The IRS did. One, they don't care. Two, they probably don't believe you, right? Because we live in a place or in an era where everything can be Googled. Okay. So you telling the IRS you don't know, that's not a reasonable excuse. Because the first thing that the IRS is going to tell you is, why didn't you do research? Why didn't you call the IRS? Okay. But going back to the quarterly payments, a lot of people don't know about the quarterly payments, right? When you're self-employed, we're not paying taxes. When we are employed with an employer, we are making those weekly, biweekly, monthly tax payments, right? So when they take our federal, when they take our Social Security and our Medicare from our check, from our employer, those are our payments to the federal, to the Social Security, to the Medicare, right? When we are self-employed, we're not making those payments. So all income that's coming in, we're keeping in, right? We're not making any type of payment. So you're supposed to be making quarterly payments based on the amount that you're making. A lot of people wait till the end of the year, and then they're like, I'll just pay it at the end of the year, right? At the end of the year comes and they have a bill of, I don't know, $20,000. And they're like, wait, why do I have to pay that? Why I don't want to, blah, blah. I understand it's a lot, especially just to say like, here you go, IRS, $20,000, right? But that is the purpose of the quarterly payments. That's why we're supposed to be making quarterly payments to avoid the one, just that big chunk of payment at the end of the year.
Okay.
And then also it's my understanding that if you don't do your quarterly payment, it's not like you're going to pay that amount, the same amount the next quarter. There's like interest added to that, right? Or no?
So that's after you miss the payment.
Yes, if I miss a payment, if
Yes.
I'm like, you know what, I didn't make enough, I'm not going to report this quarter. I'm just going to
Yes.
report it, on the next one. So, but
And
then there's interest on that non-payment.
Yeah. And then you also have to think, okay, say you make the payment and you overpay. It's not like the IRS is going to keep your money. Okay. Same thing as when we work for an employer, we do our taxes and we get a refund, right? We overpaid. So now we're getting a refund. You're self-employed, you're making those quarterly payments. And for some reason you ended up paying $2,000 more than when you had to. Okay, here's your refund. They're not going to keep your money. So just keep that in mind. If you overpay, you will get that money back.
Okay.
Right.
No, this is all really helpful. I think we have a couple more questions. One from Melissa, and I think it's more maybe about the terminology. What are considered reimbursements? I think early on you mentioned that reimbursements are not considered income, and so I think maybe Melissa just wanted to clarify what's considered a reimbursement.
So maybe think refunds. Okay.
And I think we talked about this because, I'll bring this up because it was a clear example that I had, we discussed when we were at the EFA conference last year. We went out to dinner with a group of editors. It was about 15 of us, and I agreed, I'll pay, you guys can Venmo me. And then when I got home, I'm like, oh my God, now all of this is going to show up as income in my account, and it's not income. What do I do about that? So I'm just getting reimbursed. So I need to be able to classify that money that's coming in differently.
And I'm going to touch base on this just a little bit. There's this new law that's been trying to pass for the last 2 or 3 years on income over $600 on Zelle, Venmo, PayPal, all those apps, right? Cash App. So any app, where we send money, They haven't passed it. Okay. It's been very back and forth, very back and forth. I know you mentioned, like going out to eat and then everybody just kind of pays you. That's where it's going to get tricky. And I'm not going to get too much into detail with that because it's not something set in stone yet, but just keeping that in mind, right? We have to separate personal and business, right? So our Cash App, our Zelle, all those should be business, right? So if we're receiving over $600 money in that, even if it's not income, but it's just maybe reimbursements or it's just people sending us, money, you are going to get a 1099 at the end of the year. But that doesn't mean you're going to be taxed on it. Okay. That just means, because I already hear people telling me, why am I going to receive a 1099? That's not income. I don't need to report it. Yes, you're right. You don't. That's when your tax accountant, your tax advisor, that's where you have to explain to them, I got this form, but this is what it was for. And I have all the receipts for it. It was people paying me for food or people reimbursing me for, I don't know, whatever it was. And then we can fill out a separate form, stating that it wasn't income and this is what that money was coming in for. Okay. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. All right. We have a few more questions, and anyone, if we ask a question, but maybe we don't, like, if you have outstanding sub questions, just feel free to unsilence yourself and pipe in. I just want to make sure that we get the answers that you're looking for. So Melissa also asked, if I get an accountant remotely, do they have to be from my state?
No. So I work for Certum Solutions. Certum Solutions is in North Carolina and I live in Texas. And I take care of clients pretty much everywhere.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So then, and Tiffany had a question sort of related to that, being, do you have any tips on finding a good financial advisor or accountant? Like, what are the kinds of things that we need to look for?
One, ask a lot of questions. Okay, ask a lot of questions pertaining to your business. Ask questions. If they can answer them, they're good.
Okay.
That's my biggest thing. Resources, right? They should be able to provide you with a lot of resources, even if they don't know, because I don't know everything, but I will provide you with some resources. You know what, here it is. This is what I found. I think the biggest thing is asking a lot of questions, a lot. And I mean, a lot of questions. Okay. How is my business going to grow? Okay. Well, what kind of reporting can I like to meet with clients, once we have actual financial statements, I like to meet with clients once a month and we go over those financial statements and we go over your balance sheet and we go over your profit and loss, right? What do we need to do? What do we need to stop doing? So just keep making sure that you ask a lot of questions, especially pertaining to your business, not general questions, just a lot of questions pertaining to your business.
Okay. And hearing that, I think that's a really great piece of advice. I know that over the years, it's been a journey for me to find tax preparers and accountants that I can work with. And many years ago, my husband and I had just moved to a new state and someone was recommended to us. And I can tell you that the attitude with which they treated my questions, like, it ended up foretelling a lot about how the overall experience would go. So I always think when we're looking for service providers, to realize that they are partners, they will be partners, and we will be kind of stuck with them or stuck to them for a certain amount of time. So it's important to have people that you feel that you have a rapport with, that are transparent, that are honest, that will answer your questions, and that you have that kind of feeling of comfort with, which goes back to your issue of asking questions. Okay.
Yeah.
We have
and like, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, and then I'll hop to the next question.
No, and just like I mentioned, sometimes we may not have all the answers, but we will guide you. I know, like, you guys had been asking the Shopify, right? And we're still, so it's just making sure that you have someone in your corner, right, that's going to answer those difficult questions. And if we don't have the answer, just kind of guide you in the direction that you need to go to find those answers.
Right. And so the next question is about Patreon. And then I think, Linda, you posted something a little bit further.
I was looking at that while we were speaking. And so it does say here that if somebody's getting a payment, so if I had a Patreon and you guys were sending me $5 a month, that's income, unless I'm a legitimate nonprofit and set up as an entity that's a nonprofit organization, but that is considered income. However, I put a link in the chat for those of you that are interested that, because I know a lot of us contribute to other people's Patreon accounts. And so, so that we don't dwell too much on that, I did put a link of what Patreon has regarding tax and what's considered a profit or not, and what needs to be reported or not. So that's in there.
Okay. And then Dana was able to give us a little clarification on the question, in that Dana has an LLC, and it's a partnership, and has, let me see, been in business. I've been in business for 3 years. I've never paid myself, just left it in the business. I turned a small profit last year. So I have some funds in the business account, not sure when I'm allowed to spend that money on myself. And Dana, if you want to pop in, if you want to clarify anything to make sure that we're getting the right, got the right details, feel free to unsilence.
Thanks. You got it.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
That's it then, yeah.
Okay. You can't spend that money on yourself, right? The best thing to do would be to just do like an owner's draw, or just kind of maybe an employee pay, something to where you're actually specifying where it's going to, right? Maybe an owner's draw to where, you know, that money went to you and it's not classified as like a personal expense.
Okay.
Daisy, is there a difference between an owner's, and this might be another session that we have on accounting, but is there a difference quickly between an owner's draw and an employee pay if we're the same person? Or is there a preference, like how I need to be labeling this?
Yes, well, it depends. Okay, and this is where a lot of the stuff is going to start going to, like, it depends. It depends. Are we doing an owner's draw once a year, once every 6 months? That would be an owner's draw. Or are we doing employee pay, which is done weekly, bi-weekly? You know, it's more of like a scheduled pay.
Okay, great. Got it. Perfect.
Do I have to pay income tax on an owner's withdrawal?
No, so that would go to your personal taxes, like your regular 1040.
So not business
your Schedule
taxes,
C.
but in my personal
Yes.
tax reporting. Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so in that case, if you had an LLC and you brought in like $100 and then you paid yourself as an owner $10, are you paying taxes on that twice, or you're paying the full amount of taxes but in 2 different places? Like, how does that work?
So it's in 2 different places, and you have to think about it this way, okay? When you're a sole proprietor LLC filing a Schedule C, you are pretty much paying employer and employee taxes,
Right.
okay? So I just wanted you guys to know that, because I have clients that will come and they're like, well, I'm paying so much in taxes. Well, really, you're not. You're paying just the employer and the employee part of it.
Yeah, it feels like a lot. But yeah,
Yes.
whenever you do, if you make that switch from being someone else's employee to being self-employed, yeah, it feels like you're paying double the taxes. But then,
Yeah.
but if it's an LLC, I guess my question is, how, like, what is the division there? Because I guess the fear is that, well, am I going to be paying the taxes for the LLC, and then I pay myself out of that, and then now I'm going to pay even more taxes on that extra $10 that I paid myself, or how does that work?
No, because business taxes, you're going to be taxed whatever income is in the business. Once that money comes out, you're going to be taxed on it on the personal side of it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think we just forget. yeah, I think we just forget to see since we see ourselves as just one person doing everything,
Hard.
we get to see ourselves as, on one end, we're a business, but on the other end, we're also bringing in personal income. And it is
Yes.
two separate things. And
Yes.
there's different taxes involved, even though it's just always the same person reporting in two separate ways or two different areas.
Yes.
So, and this is why I edit and I don't do taxes and accounting, basically. One of the things in terms of tools that has helped me a lot in the last year is that, so I bank with a credit union. So I have my joint account with my husband, that's our personal stuff. And then I have a business account, which is really just a checking account with my local credit union that I really like. And I run all my business expenses through there. So I have a credit card that I only use, that's from the credit union, that I only use for business expenses. And that way, at the end of every month, or maybe if I'm a little bit more disorganized, every 2 months, I'll just download the file from the bank in an Excel format of all the transactions, and automatically it'll pop into as an Excel spreadsheet, and it'll have all the expenses and all the income that came in, and I can label those, or I can throw them into the right. And so it's much better than keeping the receipts for everything and then having to log it in manually onto an Excel spreadsheet. So that's been a really great tool that's helped me simplify keeping track of my accounting. And it's really not that complex as it used to be, I felt before. So
yes. And like I said, I think the biggest thing is being organized and having that person that's going to guide you into the right direction, right? Just a quick example. I have a client that I just started working with, and they have grown. It's a construction company, so they've grown so much over like the last year or 2 years. But when I got their books, they were coding everything into employee benefits, right? And I'm going through it, and I don't know what they were doing before, or if they had someone before, but the IRS doesn't take alcohol as a meal, okay? And the alcohol is not deductible, especially for a construction company, okay? So they have tons of transactions with alcohol. So I asked her, right, where do you want us to put this? It's an employee benefit. Put it under an employee benefit. I'm like, I cannot do that. It's not an employee benefit, right? Not for a construction company. So just making sure, like I said, somebody that has that knowledge, and they tell you, they're not just kind of just bringing everything in and just, whatever it is, right? Just advising you and telling you, okay, yes, we did purchase this. Yes, it was purchased with the employee credit card, but what was it used for? Where are we supposed to put it, right? Because come tax season, the IRS is going to be like, well, you spent $60,000 in alcohol and you're a construction company, right? So again, just having someone that has that knowledge, someone that can guide you, and being very organized.
Yes. And so Daisy, since we're wrapping up, a quick question. So taxes are due April 15th. These are personal taxes, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? Okay, so we're not ready for April 15th. Maybe we've fallen behind. Okay, what's plan B then?
I feel like nobody's ever ready for April 15th. Come January 1st, and this is me, okay? January 1st, I'm like, I got this. This is my year where I'm just gonna, file taxes. January, end of January, they're gonna be done, right? Come January, February, March, and they haven't been done. But I feel like it happens a lot for personal taxes as well as business taxes, right? April 15th comes along, you're not ready, then we file an extension, okay? Keep in mind, an extension is only an extension to file. It's not an extension to pay, okay? What that means is we file an extension April 14th, right? So April 15th, you're good. The IRS accepted your extension. We're good. We have another 6 months to file those taxes. But if you owe taxes, once you file those taxes, say you file taxes August 1st, let's say August 5th, right? So that's April, May, June, July, August, September, April, May, June, July, August. So that's 4 months. Even though it's the beginning of August, the IRS is already counting it as 4 months, right? So they're going to tax you, not tax you, they're going to charge you interest on 4 months, okay? And it's 0.5 0.5% and 0.05% per day that it's late. So it's two taxes, 2 interest charges, I'm sorry.
Okay. So it's in our best interest that January 2nd, we set an appointment with you and
Yes,
yes,
please
and
do.
schedule when we're going to be doing. Okay, great.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Great. So I think we're kind of out of time, but this was, I feel, really helpful in just clarifying some misconceptions we might have had. We're all very eager to do our accounting and pay our taxes and be law-abiding freelance editors. And so I'm hoping that this is going to be the first of many conversations that we have with you. As you know, I wish everybody in this room like absolute much success with their freelancing careers, and hopefully they're going to continue to grow as well and learn. So we'll be requiring more of your consultations and webinars here with us.
Yes, of course. It was great being here with you guys, spending this hour. I love to talk to all of you. I hope I get to talk to all of you on a one-on-one. My info's there. Any questions, reach out to me, and hopefully I get to talk to you guys soon again.
Yes, I hope so. So I'll be sharing the slides with everyone, and probably in the next hour, I'll send the link to that, and I'll send a link to the recording as well. And Daisy, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. And thank you everybody else who made time for being here with us today. It was really great seeing you.
Thank you, Daisy.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.